Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek Program at the J.C. Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the Education Assistant here at the Arboretum, and today we are in a shade garden that is also a rain garden because it is 35 degrees Celsius today, and for those of you that are still in the less than 5% of the human population still using Fahrenheit, that's about 95 degrees, which is hot, 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 but that is okay. We have a program for you today about tackling texture in the shade garden. We've got our research technicians, Evan Villani and Tim Alderton here, as well as a whole plethora of very textureful plants that thrive in the shade. So we've got a shady program, a cool program, a delightful program, and it should be all kinds of fun. Those of you watching this on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. And with the announcements out of the way, I can pass things over to Tim and Evan to teach us a little bit about texture in the shade garden.
Speaking of beat the heat, we are out here in the shade garden today. And so, as I'm sure you know, any passionate gardener with a few years under their belt will end up with a shade garden.
I've been spending a lot of time in it in the afternoons this past week.
Oh, yes.
I have avoided the sun at all costs in the afternoons, and wonderful place to be instead of stuck inside.
But oftentimes in like the big box stores and all these stores, a lot of what you'll see on the shelves is big, showy, flowerful sun plants, sun lovers.
Yep.
They're full of color and very in your face, but there's a lot to love in the shade garden too. Dry shade
is becoming even more common. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So
those trees soak up everything.
Right. So we're here to tell you, you've got a shade garden. How can I make that lush and visually interesting? We've got some plants for you here today.
I don't know if Evan knows what I've collected, because he was actually working in the sun all morning until early afternoon, I think, and just ran in here shortly, just a short time ago. So I collected a bunch of things, and one of the most obvious options for a shade garden, we're going to talk about some different groups of plants, I should say, and I gathered a bunch of different things, and it's just a tiny sampling of what we have here at the garden, which you need to come and see if you haven't, because there's more than we can present here
on a single table.
Yes, but I started with some ferns, and some of these you may actually have in your own garden, and like, let's see if I can do this without shaking. I'm always shaking the plants, as I'm told by Alexander. So this is a lady fern. This is, I think, lady in red, if I remember right.
That's right.
Yeah, this is lady in red. She's a hybrid, but still, this is more of your typical lady fern. And I mean, and it's that typical fern look. And, you know, it looks similar to this Dryopteris here too, and which is a pretty common one. This is an I think, yeah, this is Erythrosaur. This is your autumn fern. But they have similar textures, but it is different when you see these in context.
When they clump, their habits are a little different.
There's different forms of some of these, like especially some of the ladies' ferns. There's a ton of the Japanese ferns, and you get these funky crested leafed ones, for instance, and you can get them on some of the other lady ferns as well. So some very different textures with that. And these are more of your traditional ferns, but I have some slightly less common ones. You know, we do have native lady or maidenhair ferns, adiantums, and this is let's see, which one do I have here? This is good, Golden Michael, but it's probably Capillus veneris, and the wind is not helping us right now.
Or it's showing how delicate.
This is super delicate.
Right.
But we have our native maidenhairs, and like I said, this is probably a Capillus veneris hybrid or something like that, the southern maidenhair. But if you go out in the woods around here, I saw on Saturday, I was over in Umstead, and I saw big patches of the northern maidenhair, kind of similar in what we traditionally think of ferns. Then I collected some other ferns here that are a little more bizarre.
Right.
And one of my favorites here is Aconia grame. This is a Japanese fern, and I don't remember what they call it. This is Aconia grame japonica here, but it's a little less ferny than we think of. But within the Aconia grames, there's some really cool ones. And I picked up a couple different ones. Let's see if I can get them again. I picked up 3 abnormal ones. So there's your, here. Actually, Evan has the perfect shirt on because he's on white, so white background. So you can see that one there versus this one called Rasha, which has contorted pinna on it. It's not that traditional fern look, and I cannot. I can never spit this one out, but this is actually my favorite of the Coniagrames we have in the garden, and it's one of the best. It's something
Is that Euroe Musha?
Yes, exactly. Thank you. It's truly my favorite of the Coniagrames we have, which is a little different yet. And then there's this funky one, Shishigashira, which the lion's mane form. So those are all the same type of fern, but 4 total different looks and textures.
And once again, it might be hard to see on camera with just an individual frond being shown, but when you let these things clump and they really speak. And speaking of clump, the shade garden is a good opportunity to let things clump and run into each other, and that gives you, as you were seeing in that opening shot, when things run into each other, it doesn't look so messy when their perennials are the same height.
If you go out in the woods
lush.
and you see a field of, actually almost a field of ferns at times, it's really cool and lush.
It's a very nice effect,
but I mean, these Coniagrames, I think you would think they'd be delicate. These are some of the hardiest ferns I think I have in the garden for water use. I have some over here that don't get any water. I have them in various spots. We have that I can't spit up,
Euroe Musha.
Euroe Musha on a rock that sticks out on a little shelf out of our cascade garden on the cascade wall. It just gets a little bit of drip from the overflow of the cascade, but it also grows in dry shade and it's happy as a clam.
Right.
So it's just, or in average soil. It's really a versatile plant. Some other ones that are, or one other one that's pretty common that you see are the holly ferns. And again, we'll use Evan as the perfect, I should have remembered to wear white. But anyways, this is Butterworthii. This is Sertomium falcatum Butterworthii. But just beautiful pinna on this one as well. But it's not that ferny, fine pinna that you see on so many of our traditional, what we think of as ferns.
Yeah, and these do well as just 1 or 2. You could put them in the clump of something else.
Yes,
and have
or this is one, well, flip it over.
Oh yeah.
There's spores on it. This is one that if you have a rock wall, you may get these to self-sow or into the rock wall on its own. We have them in the lath house and they just come along. I've seen them, I remember going to Fort Macon out on the coast several years ago, and there was a drain. There was a holly fern growing in it. And down in the recess, it had been blown in there. They are truly a versatile plant and great for a shaded location in the garden. And even more fun, and I think we showed you a frond, I don't know, of a different form of this. This is actually a crested leaf form. This is a Woodwardia, I think orientalis crested form, and it also has babies all over it. You can see the crest up here. These are just the babies on this one. It's vivipary. The spores germinate on the fronds, and you get millions of little babies.
Very easy to
so
say.
it adds a whole other aspect of texture once they start to form the babies on them. So, so we've covered that one group of plants. I forgot. Thank
Pyrosia
you. And my
lingua.
pyrosias, and I love pyrosias.
And what's nice about these is they can take pretty much full sun too, right?
I don't know about full sun, part shade, part
They can
sun.
take quite a bit of sun. So if you've got a spot that's going to be shady in a few years and you're like, well, I want to get something in the ground and it to look nice, here's a good opportunity.
This species too also grows as an epiphyte in the wild.
Right.
So it's growing on rocks or on tree branches. It's pretty, again, drought tolerant. I haven't tried it here yet in the garden, but I have a big container that I don't do anything with. I just leave it out all the time. But Tony Avon at Plant Delights Nursery Juniper Level Botanic Garden is growing these in moss baskets hanging in the garden. So you can have a whole other aspect of things growing in your shade garden. And he leaves them out year round. Does not need to bring these in whatsoever. And there's a bunch of different leaf forms of these, and they feel like plastic. They are just, the substance on them it's really cool. It's hard to show just when it has 5 leaves on it, like this little clump. I have a big pot over here, but it weighs a ton. So I didn't want to carry it over. We might break our table.
I'll make some space.
Yeah,
I was sticking with some smaller stuff, or do you want to move to big stuff?
What do you want to do? What do you see? What you want me to grab? Since I did the first part, you can.
Well, let's talk about the carex and
that sounds good to
grab
me.
the farfusium as well.
The Farfugium? Okay.
Farfugium.
Do you want the Acorus?
Because-
Are they Acori as well?
Why not? For sure.
Because they kind of go with the Carex-esque look.
We're done with ferns for now.
Yeah.
So, there you go. We're talking about texture, so of course we're bringing in some contrast. You've got Carex. Did you bring a tag with this? I don't know.
I didn't bring a tag with that one. I don't remember which one it is.
Well. Oh
Darn.
well. But anyway, a nice fine textured short plant and a very coarse textured
That'll
short
probably
plant.
get about that tall.
Right, and they're both beautiful in their own way, and you can plant them right next to each other for a high degree of visual interest. I mean, that's like,
And then
that's eye stopping right there. Your eye is not going to glance over that. It's going to stop right there where the two things meet.
And some of the Farfugiums, which are these things here, some used to call them Ligularies, there's some bizarre ones. We had one in our auction last week. It literally looked like someone took a green plastic something or other and melted it.
Yeah.
It had these ridges. It just looked so bizarre. So there's some different textures, and this is one, Mark brought this one back from Japan. He just calls it variegated form. But it's a variegated, more of the traditional leopard plant, Farfugium japonicum maculatum. But because of the variegation in it, you get this crinkling, kind of like lettuce type look to it. So it's different than the more smoothness of this one. And what is this one? This is also from that same trip. Is this a gold leaf one? Oh, this actually is a name. Mangetsu. Maybe something with gold. Because it's a paler green is my guess, but I could be wrong.
And Tim, does Farfugium run or clump?
They are clumpers. And I wish they could run because my rabbits have been liking them.
So mixing runners and clumpers together can be nice as well to fill in the space.
Actually, that Carex right there is only going to get 6 or 8 inches tall. Well, these Farfugiums should, theoretically, if the rabbits don't devour them, get a good foot to 18 inches tall. So you could grow that as an understory or an overstory for the Carex. So
there you go. It's layers, people.
In that contrast.
That Farfugium is a winter bloomer. You'll get flowers.
Late fall and early winter.
Early winter. So if you need some flowers for December, that's a great one.
The really cool one is Farfugium japonicum giganteum, which they call it
tractor seed.
Yes, tractor seed. Literally, the leaves, if they're happy, will get like a dinner plate size, and they're glossy green. So it's the John Deere tractor, old John Deere tractor seed from the probably the 40s. But anyways.
Back to our fine textures, we've got Acorus.
And we have two different types again. So I tried to get us some. This is Acorus Calamus variegatus. So this is one that's more European and North American in origin versus Gramineus is an Asian one. But I love Gramineus is a versatile plant. It's actually all over right back here.
Very vigorous.
It grows sun, shade, wet, dry. It'll grow partially submerged. Actually, in the Cascade, I have it where there was a big pot sitting at one point, and it rooted into the wall, and I couldn't remove the part from the wall. And it's almost as big as the pot that was there
What's
originally.
interesting is, once again, this isn't something that's very impressive in a pot. It looks kind of just like, well, what am I looking at? But then when you see a whole area filled with it,
soft.
It's glorious. Yeah.
The textures that you get as our talk is about texture.
Right.
In this area here, we actually have very similar colors too. I don't know if you can see it, but if Evan shifts that way.
If I get out of the way.
Can you get the Aurelia over there that's actually Evan's probably still in front of? I don't know if you can. But anyways, it's chartreuse. And then there's this light green fern, Philopteris here. And then you have the Acorus gramineus ogon. And just that continuation of colors, but there's major difference in the texture all going on there.
But it keeps things connected.
Yes, but then you can have the contrast. I tried to pull things that have little color in contrast, but there are some color variations that we do have here. I could not totally get rid of it. So, and here we have a whole group of plants.
Yeah.
One's a different species, but
a very high degree of variation because there's a lot of Japanese cultivars out there.
These Ardesia japonicas mutate like there's no tomorrow. They will revert this one has wanting to do here, but we've made a couple selections here in the garden actually from some of these reversions or mutations. But you can see just the variation between, this one's pretty run-of-the-mill here. And I don't even see a label, I'm hoping it's run-of-the-mill. Versus this one here, mulatto, I don't know. But it has a crinkly leaf versus this one here, it has crinkly, really super crinkly leaves and some variegation. And then even this one here, which is another green leafed one, it with some side or edge variegation, which kind of gives it this puckered look. So, you know, you can even, these are theoretically grow as ground covers. You can have them there and kind of meld them together and you can get some.
You can meld them together. You could place a couple different ones in different areas of your garden.
Yes.
So there's connection, but it doesn't look quite the same.
Yep.
So you still get that interest.
And then there's their cousin, the Crenadas, which, and this is one, I don't know if I can spit its name out.
Much taller growing.
This is Benny Cruz. I can't spit it out. But
And do these spread as much?
No, these will self-sow. These are shrubby, but don't plant these in Florida, any of these, or the Gulf Coast. They may be weeds down there, but for us here, they tend to be get enough winter damage that keeps them in check. But they are really cool. When you get these purple.
That new growth.
And then it goes variegated. It has a white or a pink edge and a green center.
And even after these cute little flowers are done, they'll hold bright red berries, right?
Yes, yeah, and that's the problem further south, but not here. So it has texture. The edges of the leaves are all slightly undulating, and there's a scallopedness to them. So it's something you can work in there in contrast again to something like that Farfusium there. Or even, against the dwarf japonicas. Anyways, so I have some other thing. I've talked about these before. More shade plants.
Aspidistra.
Aspidistra, the cast iron plants. I got 5 different ones here, and there's another one right behind us here, spectacular. I don't know, which is rather spectacular right now as far as I'm concerned. I mean, just the variation of more of your typical Eladier types. Which there's so many of these and they have different variegations on them versus this is a Szechuanensis type, which that is the same species as the spectacular behind us. And this one has this, how do you describe those splotches?
Speckled.
But it's like you have blurred eyesight.
Yeah.
Versus this one back here is speckled.
Right.
I mean, that adds, it's not necessarily texture, but this does have a different leaf shape than that one. But it gives a different dimension to it.
It's visually interesting. It draws the eye.
And then
this is the tallest thing we've talked about so far,
It is.
Except for Farfusium giganteum.
Yes. And then I have this one, which I don't know if this one's hardy or not. Hardy to 8B. This one's borderline forest, but Attenuata, this is a shorter growing species.
Right. And as we get into things of different heights, it's nice to think about, like what Tim talked about earlier with Farfusium maybe being the overstory to something like a very short carex, is thinking about playing around with height in the garden. How high do you want to limb up your trees?
Yes.
How much should some things like that are weeping should droop almost all the way to the ground? Always fun things to think about, and there's no really wrong answer. It's what you want. Right, I'll hold this above you.
Yeah, we have, speaking of that, we have a branch from one of the weeping Japanese maples, which are dissectum types. Almost all, there are a few exceptions of dissectums that are actually upright, but they typically be the haystack shape, but very delicate, lacy looking plants versus what Evan has here is another one, which is an upright one, and it has a much coarser true palmate leaf. There's so much variation in Japanese maple. I tried only, again, to get the green ones so that you could see just the texture that you can get just from using differences within the same species or even in the genus.
Yeah, and we're big fans of Japanese maples here, obviously.
Are you sure?
But
They're all right.
I actually pulled them out. I don't know about you.
Small trees are not out of the question in the shade garden. They make very nice
Actually,
statements.
right behind us, you can't see it, but there is about a
that's no longer a
25
small
foot
tree.
tall Japanese maple. It's just the straight species, and
Right.
it's growing as an understory in here. So
It's
it is a
true.
shade plant very much.
But
So-
you get more of an impact from things that you can see the foliage of. Well, I mean, the trunk is obviously very
It is
nice on this.
spectacular.
But in my mind, what I was trying to convey is when something can fill in with foliage and you don't have to limit up, like a small 10-foot Japanese
Yes.
maple makes a very good statement.
But again, you're getting texture from that,
from the
that
trunk.
bark.
Of
that
course,
trunk,
of course.
Versus we have another plant that we'll talk about later on, Aucuba, an aspidistra that we just talked about. So there is a lot that you can get to in the shade, and we've just talked. We're just touching on these things. So
Should we get into some shrubs?
do you? No.
Well,
I don't know. Well, right there, you have a few to start with.
That's right.
And actually, that that branch came from right over there where Alexandra was just pointing at the base of that maple.
so Aucubas, we've got over 100 in the garden.
Theoretically, yes, somewhere.
So again, one of these ones that just has so many different mutations. So pick your favorite Aucuba and plant it in your shade garden.
Pure green with relatively small leaves. We have some that have much larger leaves. These are your more traditional speckled leafed ones. They might be more longer and thinner versus broad.
Yeah.
There is variation, and you can see it when you have them used together.
Yeah, most often you're going to see Aucuba japonica. That's our tried and true Aucuba. It's very popular here. But once it's established, I mean, there's really no killing it.
Yeah. And there's different sizes too. So you get a lower mound versus a 10-foot tall mound. Now, with speckles. I was talking with a lady in the Japanese garden, and she saw one of the ones. She says, "How old is that?" And I look at the label. I remember moving that there. It was a 2004 accession. It's only 3 feet tall.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was it Kameba?
No, it's Mr. Wonderful,
Okay.
which I didn't used to have a name, but I remember when I
Sure.
planted Mr. Wonderful.
Kameba is one of my favorites for its form, that nice rounded habit. It's nice and squat, and it doesn't have speckles, if you can believe that.
I mean, we just have something jade. I can't remember her name, which is what that branch is that Evan
Yeah.
has right here.
Yeah.
Petite jade, which is a National Arboretum introduction.
Very nice. No more than 4 feet
and
there.
those are, they'll get a little bit bigger than that, but not much. So,
yeah.
But I mean, so you can get a lot of variation, like I said, even within the same group of plants. So what do you have there?
This
sorry.
is
And I'll
what
bring
used to be
something related.
Schefflera. I already forget what it really is called.
Heptaplorum. I don't know how you
Heptaplorum.
can't remember that.
Apologies. And one of my personal favorites, Fatsia.
Yes.
Fatsia japonica.
This is not. This is actually.
is-
Darn, I'm blanking. Oh.
Fatsia nonetheless.
Yes. Well, I'm blanking on the other species. Yeah, this is the one from Taiwan.
I mean, I just can't get over that leaf shape. It's gorgeous. It draws my eye every time I walk by one. There's one right outside Kilgore Hall on NC State campus, and it's just lovely. And you even get some floral interest too. And they're I don't know what this one does, but they get multi-trunks, so
Yeah.
you
This
can
was-
shape them in a bunch of different ways.
I hate to say it, this one gets cold when we get below about 15.
Oh, this was in the lap
This
house?
was in the lap house.
That's
and
right.
this is a piece I saved. This was 10 feet tall. And this is all
in
that's
another
left.
life.
I propagated it before I lost it. But it's darn, what is the species? Oh.
Do you want to talk about the Heptaplorum?
Okay, we can talk about the Heptaplorum.
I don't know much about this.
So this, we can't grow many Schefflera here reliably. There's some that are cold tolerant and there's some that are heat tolerant. There aren't many that are both. This one is. This is Heptaplorum or Schefflera delavii, which it'll get anywhere from 4 to 10 feet tall. I've seen massive ones out in the West Coast in Seattle area. Even here they can do it. Our biggest one in the garden is only like 5 or 6 feet tall, but they are just so cool to be able to grow something that looks so tropical. Taiwaniana is a really
In the
cool one with
shade, too.
finer leaves, but it says when it gets days, it says 95 degrees, oh my. And it's from high elevations in Taiwan. But then there's others that say it gets to 10 degrees, oh my, and they die. But this one is the best of both worlds, and we can grow it. The inflorescence on this is pretty cool. It has these long, it's a branching it's a spike and then it branches. It's really cool. While the while the Fatsias, on the other hand, have this branching inflorescence of little balls or umbels. So you get, when those actually come into flower, the texture is really cool on them as well, which is another aspect. I didn't bring many things that are for flowers here today either. Just again, trying to go for texture.
Because what you're going to get most of the year, especially in the shade, is the foliage.
Yes.
I mean, some things hold on to their flowers, but
so many of them are spring flowering if they are in the shade.
Right,
or there's so many ephemerals, which you see them for a month in the winter and then they're gone. And I only brought one of these, but this is, speaking of ephemerals.
Oh, this is
an ephemeral, but this is a winter grower. And this is a Hellebores.
Rocky Mountain.
This is one of the Rocky Mountain series, and I don't remember which one. I didn't bring the label. This isn't one from our trials, but anyways, it's a Sternii, I think. But I don't know, can you see the texture or
I just planted one in the contemplation garden.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see what it does.
So, but these are a little different than most of the hybridas or the. I've done a whole talk on Hellebores. If you go back, you can learn a lot about them. But there's so many of them.
Plant,
the textures on the foliage are great on so many of them, and they're making big headway on some of the things, like on these Sternii. There used to just be a couple that were available, but. With the silver on this is just another aspect. I could care less if it flowers.
Right.
So that's what people come, now what can I plant in the shade? And it's like, go for texture and go for foliar color. So, but today, it's texture is the key thing. So, but
we actually have a local Hellebore nursery, Pine
I don't know.
Farm.
Yeah, no, and I don't know someone who used to work there. Knows way more about them probably than me. But speaking of other shade plants. Oh, we were doing woodies, and I transitioned. Sorry.
It's quite all right.
I'll go back to woodies.
Yeah, grab that oak leaf hydrangea.
I don't have
Pieris
many.
japonica. These, again, another two of my favorite plants. If
we already talked about maple salsa.
Put a gun to my head and told me to pick a favorite I could not choose, I would die in that spot.
Can you see that at all from that angle?
These are both very, very good plants. Pieris is sometimes planted in the sun and then it gets blight or leaf miner, and then people go, "Oh, Pieris is a bad plant." But that's the same story with boxwoods, right? You don't plant boxwoods in full sun.
They'll get azalea lace bugs on them.
That's right. It can tolerate part sun, or you can give it most shade, and it has just a beautiful whorled leaf habit there. It's kind of like Pittosporum in that regard, but I love the way that these fill in. That it's kind of like an upright vase shape, and when they flower, I mean, it's just gorgeous. That early spring. Beautiful
looks
white
like Lily of the Valley.
Yeah, it's a very special thing, and a nice texture all around. These probably get 5 or 6 feet tall.
That's a good range. They can get up to 8 or 10, but yeah, what's this? This is a compact one at 3 feet, but.
Temple Bells, this is.
But there are bigger ones too. Takes a little while.
It takes a little while, and when they get bigger, the bark actually develops its own interesting texture. It's streaky striations, really nice, rough and ridgy. It's good. It's good stuff.
It's a worthwhile plant.
Speaking of bark, we're showing you the foliage here of the
Hydrangea
quercifolias, but it's starting to form up underneath here. I don't know if you can see that.
That peely bark.
Cinnamon colored peely bark. And these are semi-evergreen most of the time for us. And so in the winter, that bark becomes a little more apparent. And you get to see that, especially on, again, your old plants.
And these are ones that actually hold on to their flowers. Again, they make good cut flowers, dry cut flowers. I mentioned this before. But you'll get that long-term texture from the flower for the whole season,
more or less. And these are so much more drought tolerant than the other hydrangeas, the macrophyllus that we so often see around here.
And what do you call those?
I call them dehydrangeas.
But the flower heads on hydrangeas have interest long past when they're done blooming. Tim's taken some really romantic photos of hydrangeas with frost on them. The dried heads,
I don't remember at this point.
They're in the database, Tim.
It's been a while.
He's been in the garden a long time.
Yeah.
19 plus really years of taking pictures. So
for sure. They look really nice in the winter. They're dried and they persist and they look really nice, just really dignified all winter long. So again, really extends the bloom and the interest of the plants for sure.
So
see, the
above us, we were joking earlier as I was, there's also some conifers that will actually grow in the shade. And this is one that was attacking me and planned on attacking us while we were doing the demonstration. So I trimmed it a speck. This is actually a Toria, but this is very reminiscent of our Cephalotaxis, which both of them are fairly shade-tolerant conifers, as well as Taxus. If you don't have deer issues, they can take the shade and
I like how
and
this
do well.
droops, too.
Yeah, this gets much bigger than a lot. The Torias get a lot bigger than most of our Cephalotaxis do here, but it looks very different. Cephalotaxis are a little more friendly than Torias. Most of the Torias are a little sharp.
Yeah.
But if you can find them, they're really cool conifers to work into a shade garden. There's a Floridian species, which is in peril in its native realm. And even here we have issues with it, taxifolia, Toria taxifolia. But if you can get a hold of one, it's a really cool native to grow. These are Asian ones. There's also a species from California. And I think they call them nutmegs, though they're not nutmeg, but anyways.
Japanese nutmeg
Yeah.
yew.
So that's Nucifera,
yeah.
Toria nucifera.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nutmeg yews, I guess, is what we'll call these. But the Torias are really good. And I did, I don't know where here's the
Cephalotaxis.
here's a Cephalotaxis
For
that
comparison.
for comparison. But this was actually an upright one. But there's low growing ones of these that you can get. We used to have one out in the east, and I can't think of her name. She's now not doing too well. But they are very shade tolerant. The deer don't touch them, which is the wonderful thing about them. So versus Taxus, they are deer candy. So I don't recommend those for around here, especially with our high deer pressure. Anyways, so a couple more, woodies that we got here.
Mahonia.
Oh yes, I have Mahonia stashed somewhere here. Give me a moment. And I brought some different textured ones. Two of these are not, these are just seedlings, and then another one is actually from just over here. But these are what the traditional Mahonias you see are, like these rather large pinnately compound ones. But great for shade. These are really
They can
mean.
be quite large.
Yes, they can. Anywhere from 8 to 15 feet, depending how you trim them and let them go.
Yeah. And we ought to do a bit of a disclaimer with Mahonias. Mahonia bealii
is a little bit of a pest.
It's a bit of a thug. It's a wee bit invasive. We do not.
You can go back to our talk in March, I think it was, or was it February?
Somewhere
and
in
you can learn about Mahonias.
Yeah, for sure. So there are Mahonias that are invasive. We will grant you that. There are even more Mahonias that aren't, that
great
are
in the landscape.
Splendid.
These are some that are not being, these are seedlings that aren't being introduced, but you can just see some of the texture difference on some of these. These are Urobracteata hybrids, and just the size on this one is, in comparison, is what I was just going at on these. You can find some similar ones now in the commercially, but just to give you a different texture, and these also flower in the winter and fall and winter, depending on, actually I take it back, some of these were coming into flower when I was picking them out here. Any summer, fall, winter, and early spring, depending on the species involved in them. But most of them are going to be fall, winter forests around here. But you can get them, and they're a little more friendly, but still, they add some texture. They almost look palm-like on some of the smaller ones to me, especially on. Like,
and they don't need much work at all.
No,
it's not like you'll be going into the bush very often.
No.
As long as you don't put it right next to a path.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And
it's not something you want to walk
There is soft
into.
caress, which is
Softer.
is softer, and it's a Urobracteata, and that's involved in the breeding in some of these. So these are barberry relatives.
And those of you that joined us for our Southeastern Plant Symposium last week got a sneak peek of a new relative of soft caress had silver foliage on it that they're introducing to the tray. I don't quite remember the name of it, but you can get that awesome visual texture with a cool blue silver foliage, which is really nice.
I'm going to go back to herbaceous stuff, but I didn't grab too much. But going on the Berberidacea with that, this is Berberidacea. This is a podophyllum. We have native podophyllums too, which are true ephemerals for us. Podophyllum pleanthum, or peltatum. And they're starting to go dormant. I was out in the woods this weekend, and they're starting to say, it's too hot, I'm going to take a break now. But some of the Asian ones are pretty cool. This is pleanthum, and that's just one leaf. And it's just so cool to see them. We just have them some over here in the Asian Valley, about 30 to 40 feet from me. And they start coming up too early sometimes, but they kind of come up March and they go down in the fall. But you get some really cool textures. There's some other selections, like, actually I have another, I should have gotten it over there. They have some deformes, which I don't have in the garden, which have these funky rectilinear leaves instead of they're not as linear around like this. They're odd shapes to add, to some of the texture. Their cousins, which I didn't pick up here, doesn't look anything like this, are the epimediums, which are great in the shade. They have pinnate leaves, somewhat like a Mahonia, but not exactly. But on herbaceous plants, and can give some really cool texture for you throughout the season, but with beautiful flowers in the spring and early summer, depending on the selections.
Beautiful, but don't get down on your hands and knees and smell them.
Oh, are they stinky? I don't even pay attention.
Stinky. They're not wonderful. It's one of those fly-pollinated ones.
Oh, I didn't even, on this?
Yeah.
It's
on the epimediums.
Oh, excuse me.
Epimediums,
yeah.
Epimediums, no. But, this one smells really good. Our native one smells great.
Yeah.
But this one here has flesh-colored flowers, which are kind of like a hand shape.
Right.
And it looks like a piece of fresh venison meat hanging there that was just sliced off the deer as it got hit along the road.
It's a bright, brilliant red. It is very visually attractive.
I grew up with roadkill, I'm sorry. So anyways, who else do I have here?
Oh gosh, but you did pull out Podophyllums and mention the varieties, but you didn't mention Spotty Dotty.
I know, that was the other, I wasn't going for color, but Spotty Dotty is a really cool one as well, which I think I have right over here. I've now gotten a clump, and I have some in the laugh house. But yeah, the podophyllums, for texture-wise, I was just going the shape. But yeah, that's why I jumped to deforme. It's a different shape. But yes, Spotty Dotty's a great one.
Arisaema.
I have so much stuff. Do you want to bring the Begonias?
Yeah.
I never grab enough things. You didn't watch the Mahonia talk, did you? That Mark and I did. I didn't have anything to talk about there. We started with a picture of begonias actually over here. That's Begonia grandis. Well, these are some other begonias. These are some that have really cool foliage. I don't know if these two are hardy yet. This one has been great. This is one, Death March Dapple. There's a story behind that, and I don't know the whole story, but it's a Dan Hinckley introduction. But I have this one in the White Garden of all places, and it's been really vigorous. This one gets great big leaves, if you can believe it. This is Cote de Castillon, and the leaves will literally get, I don't know, almost 10 to 12 inches across. With a metallic silver look, but with a spectacular back of red.
Yeah, these could be part of your Who Cares If It Flowers series.
Yes, I mean, they do flower, but again, who cares? But the texture on them is pretty cool too. They do have that fuzz. A lot of our woodland plants don't have the fuzz that you get on a lot of, say, your Mediterranean plants that you, for their texture, but those are some cool ones. The texture that comes out on, if you look at the back side of this one here, I don't know what is that thing anyways? Oh, it's a begonia.
But,
it's a
that's the whole tag.
Begonia U400. In the Begonia Society world, that U400 is very important. It could tell you where it was collected and when. But anyways, that's a pretty cool one, but you can see the hairs on that. And even if you're not growing them as perennials, they are great. And Little Moon, so I think this is one of, he spoke to us a month or so ago. Ozzie Johnson. This is one of Ozzie's hybrids. So that one should be hardy. But that's it, the puckered, it's puckered. This is like, if you touch this, the silver stuff is sticking up on it. It has a three-dimension, I mean, it has cool dimension to it, visually as well as texturally. So there are so many more begonias we are finding that will survive in our climate here. And whether it's the shape of the leaf or the actual
literal texture,
size or the texture, there is something there to, that is just really cool. And if you can find them, even play around with just some of them, as far as I'm concerned, plant some of the Rex begonias that you get at the nursery, and sometimes they will make it for us here in this area. And then you can even get some of the wax begonias, which have a glossy leaf, and it gives a totally different look than what these rhizomatous begonias here are presenting with. So some other, actually here's one that's not terribly uncommon, and I don't know, where's the best place? On Evan? Or right here. We have an Arisaema. So some of our native Arisaemas, like Triphyllum, this is not Triphyllum, this is Arisaema ringens, but they have some really cool foliage. Fargesii and Griffithii has some really nice foliage. You get wheel-like leaves on some of the other species like, oh darn, I'm blanking and I can see it in the garden, in the lath house, which you can't get to right now. But anyways, there's just textural differences on them. Some of the Arisaemas get these really long leaf extensions, which are called drip tips. Especially even within the same species, you'll get variation if they were selected from collections in wetter versus drier woodlands. The drip ones, they'll have literally 5 or 6 inch long drip tips on them. It's just this thread coming down off of the individual leaflet. So that's adding a whole other dimension to the texture, if you think about it. And I am getting eaten alive by a fly. So on my ankle, it's an ankle biter as I'm standing here. So, you have Arisaemas sometimes in your garden. Other things that we have both native and Eurasian species of are polygonatums. And this is Arisaema, which actually, there's some right behind me over in here too. This one wants to spread a little bit, I hate to say it. But anyways, just any of the Solomon seals, these beautiful, I don't know what the true structure is. I don't know if it's an inflorescence or what. It has leaf structures on it, but also on the underside, the flowers occur. It's not a true stem. The stem is underground, right. So it's like they have bizarre anatomy.
One of those you don't think about too much.
Yes, those. The true stem is underground. But anyways, just structurally in the landscape, there are some of these that range from just a few inches tall to 4, 5, even 6 foot tall ones. So, but they all have this similar structure. There are these other, like Kingianum that have these whorled stems, and they go right up with tendrils on the tips of their leaflets. Yeah. Some really awesome textures that you just don't always see growing on some of the plants, and we can grow them in the shade.
I saw almost 5 foot one in the mountains, and for a second I thought it was a 5 foot one
in the lath house, somewhere around here. Oh, here we go. A kissing cousin, or the Disporums. No, actually Disporopsis, which. They are the evergreen Solomon seals, and there's actually one right next to Alexander too that's totally different looking from this one. I don't remember what this one is. I hate to say it. I got it over by the steps, but we have a whole bunch of them in the garden now. They throw leaves in the spring, they overwinter, and then they die as the new ones are emerging in the spring. So they are virtually evergreen for us. And it gives a totally different look than so many of the polygonatums. Sometimes they have broader leaves, sometimes they have thinner leaves and look just like a Solomon seal.
Real quick, while we're on this kind of
similar. And I actually have that little Hedychium there.
Hedychium. So Tim, can you grow this in shade? And
part shade.
Yes, part shade. So these are a really nice texture. All your zingibers too?
And speaking of zingiber,
this is
Zingiber myoga right here. So
similar enough to polygonatum, taller, more straight up, different flower.
Yeah, these are ginger. This one has a flower that's literally 2 inches tall at the base of the foliar structure that comes up out of the ground in the late summer and fall. While on the Hedychiums, you get terminal inflorescence
big
on those. And they are very spectacular and often very fragrant. I don't know anything. I don't know what one I don't know anything about this one, to tell you the truth.
That's okay.
But I don't know if we have this one in the garden yet, but
It's in fact has very soft leaves.
Oh yeah, it does. There's just this tiny talk about texture. On the underside of it, it's petable. It's like a lamb's ear or a puppy's ear, you know.
There you go.
But some of the earliest ones are beginning to flower in the garden. I have Slim's orange. I noticed actually maybe 50 feet that way in flower.
The last two things.
We have a couple little things over here still sitting, and I'll grab them.
We'll wrap through these real quick. Chloranthus, kind of like a hydrangea macrophyllum leaf,
but not at all.
But it clumps up from the ground in individual stems.
It's a really primitive plant. They're one of the early flowering plants. They're bizarre. This is what the inflorescence looks like, as well as the seed heads. But actually, this has white flowers, and they're a little longer and thinner. But they're really texturally, they're really cool to me.
A great clump former.
I love the veination on the leaves on these. And there's some other species that, this is Japonica, which is probably my favorite. There's some others that we have that aren't, they're cool, but they're not as cool as this one. That one's a long shot. I just brought that for texture.
Okay.
This is a Gunnera, which I don't know if this is going to be cold hardy for us. Well, there's other ones that are cold hardy here, but say when it gets 95, they say, I don't want to live here.
So maybe not one that our viewers will be buying. So this is a
bizarre one, no. But I love just the round texture to this. It kind of gives the appearance of some of the heucheras, which we have right here. As well as maybe some of the acerums in this case for this small growing Gunnera, because some of the other Gunneras have leaves that are literally the size of these two tables combined.
Huge. Heuchera has a nice color as well.
Yeah, I mean,
lots of different varieties.
So many of them. Like if I tell anybody for something in the dry shade around here anymore, I say, you can get heucheras. Who cares if they flower? And they'll take the sun too, which is the bizarre thing. And they're hybrids of our natives. So, and the flowers on them are these foamy flowers, and they're related to foam flowers, which are tiarellas, and you get hybrids between them, which are heucherellas. So you get these very airy inflorescence on them, which again, gives you some really cool texture.
Yeah, might need some rabbit protection.
I don't know. I haven't had much problem on established ones. Sometimes they might go after the newly planted.
If you can protect your newly planted heucheras and let them establish,
the rabbits might not eat them. They might not notice them after a while.
Right.
So you know. But another thing, pulmonaria. You know, they have these leaves that look infected lungs, which are really cool, and they're fuzzy a little bit to the point that they're rough.
Yeah.
And
sandpaper-ish.
Sandpaper, yes. So if you have sensitive skin, they might not like it. You might not like them. But they have super early spring flowers on them. And this is one, this is spot on. But there's a bunch of them for us here. They used to be, I was a little questioning whether they like it here or not. The breeding is getting better for for heat tolerance, I'm finding out. I have one I really love back home, but I've killed it so many times here. It doesn't have spots on its leaf. It's Pulmonaria mollis. My mom calls it the tobacco plant. I mean, the leaves literally get about 1.5 feet long and about 6 inches wide, and they only get about 1.5 feet tall, but it's just big leaves. And for us, where I'm from in Western Pennsylvania, it's really cool. And then you get a spectacular deep blue flowers on them to boot in the spring. But those are a lot of the things that we've collected.
We made it through
and again,
all of
it's just a sampling. And I've noticed I do have a couple.
If you ever need more ideas, come to the Arboretum.
Here's another Mahonia and
a ruscus.
If you need to deter people from walking into a spot in the shade garden.
Right. I mean, at this point, we just start pointing at things.
We did have people.
We have questions?
We do have questions.
Oh,
but
no.
First, what about toad lily and hosta and acanthus?
Okay, yeah. I mean, everyone around here knows hostas and how delectable they are, so I didn't get any of them. Toad lilies, yes. Actually, we have a toad lily just right over here. What is that one? That one is not Formosana, but Formosana is a good one. I have that down that way.
Yeah.
Ravenii is really cool. This is Lassiocarpa, Lassie something, which is it's actually be coming into flower pretty soon. They like it a little bit moister. We did mention Carex. There's a carex back here in the Asian Valley, which I adore. It's not as fine as the one we showed here. Scaposa has pink flowers in the spring and in the fall, both.
Yeah.
Right.
It's bizarre. It doesn't look like what you think of as a carex. It has a broad leaf. The leaf is about an inch or so wide and about a foot long. It's totally different. It's not, but there's so many options, and we've,
There's
again, just
carex.
touched on so many
Yeah.
Yeah.
things.
Let's
For
take
sure.
some questions.
Let's do some questions. So when we were looking at Farfugium and Carex together, Carol pointed out that Farfugium requires more watering than Carex. So how would you grow the two of them together?
Perfugium doesn't have to have a lot of water.
It doesn't need, and carex tastes moisture.
It depends on the species selected, too.
Sure.
Yeah.
There are literally 3,000 plus species of carex. I'm sure you can find one
Carex isn't the issue in this equation.
that'll fit
That's for
in
sure.
with that Farfugium.
Yeah.
And there actually are carex that range from just a couple inches tall to literally 3 to 4 footers.
Yeah.
So you can dwarf the Farfugium instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
Totally. Okie dokie. Carol says her daughter lost a whole stand of Aucuba. The leaves dropped and turned black,
Yeah.
and the stems were black inside. She wants to know what could have killed them.
There are some fungal issues that'll attack the roots sometimes. If they have dried out, even here, when we plant new ones, until they're established, I
That's
have
what happens.
managed to lose them if we have a quick drought, a
Heat
sudden
wave.
or dry period. And they'll either lose large branches or the whole plant will just up and die.
Blacken.
That is the trouble with them. I hate to say it. But once they're established, they're great, typically. The only way you might get rid of it is overwatering them once they're established.
Okay. Let's see. Susan says that she has a foundation space in full shade in the summer and dappled in the winter.
Perfect.
There's 2 foot between the ground and the windows, and the bed is 5 feet deep, and she has severe deer pressure. Any ideas?
Rhodium.
Epimedium.
Epimedium, that would be great. Let's see, what else do I have? Ferns!
Yeah.
Yep.
Deer typically don't go for ferns, and there's so many different ones you could try.
Aspidistra.
Yeah, Aspidistra. They could get, depending on the selection, again, there's taller ones. I have one over here, something waterfall. It's right next to the steps.
Is it flowing fountains?
Flowing fountains, that's
Yeah.
it. Flowing fountains. That might be really cool because it
Oh, yeah.
stays low.
Yeah,
and
it
it's
does.
a dense grower.
Yeah, it is. And it's got that flowing fountainy
Yes.
sort of.
That could be a good one to try there. And I'm guessing if
Yeah.
it's that close to the window, it could be under the eaves to the house, and it might not get a lot of moisture, which often happens. Hellebores,
Yes.
heucheras. There's options.
For sure.
So
No kidding. We did film mostly pest-free plants very
Yes.
recently and dealing with deer. And the plants we covered are mostly pest-free plants in that section, the shade garden where we filmed it. There were a lot of.
I hate to say it, Ophiopogons, like I have one right over here I don't mind. Ophiopogon, oh darn, and I was talking with a lady about it. And it's umbilicolatum, or I can't spit it out, but it starts with a U. And there's Sparkler, I think it might be the selection. But there are these low mounds. I mean, they're tight clumping, unlike some of the Liriopes that you have to cut back. These Ophiopogons, you don't have to. And it's evergreen mounds of dark green foliage, and they're drought tolerant, and they don't spread. If you get down in them, they do flower. And if you get really down in them after they flowered, you get these turquoise fruit.
Ooh, yeah.
That's
I've never seen those. I know they exist.
They do.
I've seen pictures of them.
And if you want something, you could pair that with one of the super dwarf Ophiopogon japonicums that only get 2 inches tall.
Name.
And you have 2 different textures within the same genus and very low maintenance.
No kidding.
Neither of them
sure.
needs cut.
You don't do anything.
You don't do anything
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
Just don't walk on them too much.
They can, too much. They can take a tiny bit of foot
Yes.
traffic. They're obviously not turf replacements
No.
outright. And it was Ophiopogon umbraticola.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yes,
sparkler.
Sparkler.
Indeed. Okay, Nancy wants to know if the begonias you were talking about were angel wings.
These would be more rhizomatous. None of the angel wings are going to be truly hardy here because they truly have a cane. There are some that have more of a rhizome than a true angel wing. I wouldn't put those out as a perpetual plant outside, though there are some that are reminiscent, like Begonia grandis, which forms a tuber, but it has that angel wing-like look to it.
And you can tell Nancy, I've had the same thought. You know, if we could put the angel wing outside,
you can put them out for the summer, and
take them back in the winter.
Back in the winter, or take cuttings from the tops of them, and which they tend to root fairly easily.
We had a speaker at Raulston Blooms a couple years ago who was a transplant from California, and she grew mostly
outdoors up there.
Plants. She was jealous of North Carolina's climate because it's so humid here. You can do a lot of houseplants outdoors during the growing season. They love it. I personally have a ficus. It's a variegated rubber plant. Ficus elastica. Yeah. I keep it on my front porch.
And that's a whole aspect we didn't even touch on.
Yeah.
You can, I have a north-facing balcony at my apartment.
Sure.
Shade plants are great for the summer.
Yes, for
sure.
You
just bring them back in for the winter and hope you have enough space in your apartment.
Yeah, that's a minor detail.
I can't have anybody visit because there's nowhere for them.
That's right. The plants are visiting for the season. So you don't. Who needs people? You've got all those plants. Anyway, that's all the questions that we have for today, as well as all the time. So thank you so much, Evan and Tim, for walking us through all these plants and giving us all these.
And again,
options.
we just touched the
tip of the iceberg.
For sure. There were other, like asarum, poet's laurel, wintergreen.
And I didn't get in some of the shrubs that are around here. I have some oryxas.
Don't get us started, Blake.
Don't get us started. We'll be here another 3 hours. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Midweek Program. We will be back next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Our director, Mark, will be going over how to pack for a plant collecting expedition. So that should be all kinds of fascinating. We will see you all next time. Y'all take care.